I've mentioned before about the corruption of the police. Now, when I was arrested, I started to realize that the instructions had come from somewhere above, because the police the police captain in charge kept on phoning somebody and speaking in Shona with this person about me. So I didn't quite know who it was that he was phoning, but there was corruption involved. They were deliberately holding me, and they deliberately delayed the actual arrest until it was after 4:30 in the evening, when the courts were closed, so that I could not get a lawyer to get me on bail. They wanted to make sure that I was in prison at least for that night. Now, when they took me to the central police station where the prison cells were, they put me on the back of a cab of a truck with police all around me. And when I got to the central police station, they made me sit behind the counter, take my shoes and socks off, sit with other prisoners, and really humiliated. And then I was called to give my name and details. I had to stand up for that and then sit down again and stand up for something else and sit down again. The whole scene was a humiliating scene in front of the public that happened to be in the police station. And then when I went into the prison itself, the way that they dealt with me was constantly humiliating. And the desperation of being inside that cell, and the lack of air in the cell. This big cell door had one small peephole about 25-30 millimeters in diameter, where they could look in to see the prisoners. That was the only bit of air that could come in, apart from the high windows with the steel bars. And so during the time when we were still awake before going to sleep in that cell, I would go every now and again and stand with my mouth by this little peephole just to try and get some fresh air. It felt quite desperate. So I wanted to just tell you the intensity of the feelings, and will I get out of here? Because I realized there's corruption involved here. And when there's corruption involved, you can't think like a normal legal right that you have, because they take all rights away. You're there because they want you there, and you don't have rights. And so it was a very, very intense time. And when God spoke to me and gave me that peace, I really needed that, because I was desperate. Now, when I was in court to apply for bail, I was given a date for early April 2013 to appear in court, so that I'd have time to prepare the case. We had a friend who was an ex-magistrate. So I went to him and asked his advice, because he understands the whole court procedure. And he looked at my whole case, and he said to me, you don't even have to have a legal representative. Your case is so very simple. He said, for one, there is no complainant in this case, and you cannot have a court case without a complainant. It starts with a complainant. Secondly, all the evidence which is presented is evidence that you've given. You were the one who came and told the police that the calf was on your farm. You were the one that came with the payment and the receipt of the animal being sold and so on. The police have no evidence which they didn't get from you. And according to the law, no person can be charged for any criminal offense if they the only person that gives the evidence. And so he said, you should be in court for no more than 5 minutes. You just have to wait for the prosecuting attorney to open the case, and then you present the case that there is no complainant in this case, and that all the evidence has been produced by you, and the judge, the magistrate, has to drop the case, and they can't start it again. Once the attorney has started the case, he can't start later on with another case. The case is thrown out. So I had lots of confidence when I went to court early April, and when I arrived there at court, the magistrate completely ignored me. I sat and waited right through the day. He would say, just wait for a little while longer, I just want to finish with the case now. I'll call you at a little bit later. Then at 12:30, he would call me back up again and say, man, it's lunchtime now, we can't start the case now. Come straight after lunch, 2 o'clock, and we'll start the case. I'd be there at 2 o'clock, he would ignore me till 4:30. Then he'd call me up and say, I'm sorry, but it's too late in the day to start the case. Come tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock sharp, and we'll start your case. And so he did for 3 days. That the case wasn't started. He was trying my patience. And it was only in the 4th day that the case finally started. And I waited for the prosecuting attorney to present the case and so on. And then I presented my answer that there was no complainant in this case. I was the one who brought the information. So he said, well, I don't care about that, but I want to hear the whole case. Now, the prosecution has to present all his the testifying witnesses must present all the witnesses' accounts to me, which he did. There were 6 witnesses against me. I had all 6 accounts. So the first witness was called, and he presented something, and basically all that these witnesses were people that knew that I had a stray animal on the farm. Now that is what they call common knowledge. Everybody knows that. So you don't have to have a witness to present that as evidence, because I was the one who gave that evidence. So when the witness was finished, all I had to say was, I was the one that gave that evidence. There's no need for this witness. So after the first witness was finished, and I stood up and opposed him and said, well, I've already given this evidence. The prosecution got up and he said to the magistrate, Your Worship, they call him there, Your Worship, I have no more witnesses. And I thought to myself, this is a bit strange, because I've got the documents for 6 witnesses. He said, in fact, we are finding that we have insufficient evidence against Mr. Jackson, and so we wish to withdraw the case. So I thought, well, that's wonderful, I've won my case. And the magistrate looked at him and he said, I understand you want to withdraw your case, but I want to carry on because I want to hear the whole story. Now you must know, now the magistrate is outside of the law. What do you do when you're outside the law? On what law do you draw on to help you, because the magistrate's outside the law? Well, that case carried on for 3 weeks.
I was quite traumatized. I had, throughout the first week of the court case, I saw the writing on the wall. I realized that we had been set up. I knew that there was some agenda behind all of this, because we were absolutely innocent. There was absolutely no evidence. Nobody had laid a complaint. And so I knew that there was a different agenda going on here. And with it being so corrupt, I knew that people had been somehow bought, paid to do the job of arresting Henry and just trying to get us off the farm. And I think that just, in my mind, I could not see a way forward, although I had the promise of the Lord. For me, it was just, what do we do? How on earth are we going to get out of this? And that was traumatic in itself. What is the future going to look like for us?
And he hounded me from this way and that way, in every way that he possibly could. And I just presented the evidence each time. This is what happened, and that's what I did. And so after 3 weeks, he said he's going to give a few days to prepare his final verdict, and then I must come again for the final verdict. Well, that final verdict was on a Thursday, or about the 25th of April, somewhere around there. I came for the verdict. Again, he made me wait and said, you know, come back. I'm just busy with somebody now, and then made me come back again and again. And eventually in the afternoon, late afternoon, he started with his verdict. And I had to stand, and I knew, and he had warned me that if he found me guilty, this was life imprisonment, so that I would be sure to understand how serious this case was. I said to him, that's fine, I know that I'm innocent. Well, now he started with his case. And he started by saying, I understand that in the beginning, everything you did was excellent. You reported the animal to the police and you did everything excellently. But maybe in the end, you thought to take the animal for yourself. And his verdict was based on what he thought I thought, without any evidence being presented. I mean, that is, you know, he's now putting himself in the place of God, because the Bible says only God can judge the thoughts and intentions of a man. An earthly magistrate or judge has to judge based on evidence presented, and there's no evidence. And so the longer he went on, the more strongly he put his case through. You'd been planning this all along, and this is what you've been thinking, and you wanted to take this animal for yourself, and this is your plans, and so on, without any evidence given. And I realized that this case was rigged. Something's wrong here. And I started panicking. I really started panicking. Halfway through, a prison official came and sat next to me. And I realized that he'd already planned that I was going to prison. Why would the prison official come and sit next to me? And so he carried on and became stronger and stronger against me. And I started feeling physically absolutely weak. And just before he finished his case to pronounce his final verdict, I suddenly collapsed, completely unconscious in the court. And there I was lying unconscious in court, and he couldn't finish his verdict because the accused needs to hear the sentence, and I'm unconscious. And as God would have it, there was a nursing sister in the court, and she ran up quickly and she said to my friends, this man needs to go outside, he needs fresh air. And they picked me up and carried me outside, arranged for an ambulance to come to take me to hospital. And while I was lying outside and starting to recover a little bit, but feeling so weak I couldn't even lift my head, I was utterly weak. The magistrate came out to me there and said to my friends, I should actually get a prison doctor to see him, but I will allow him to go and see his own doctor. Now, just that fact that he talks about the prison doctor can tell you what was in his mind. He was going to send me to prison. But anyway, he said, I want this man back in court on Monday morning, 8 o'clock sharp. I must finish this case. It's a very important case. And so he left. Ambulance came, took me to hospital, and I was treated there. And then that night, Mandy and I spent with friends. But Mandy was absolutely traumatized by this whole thing. She was so traumatized that she'd collapsed, she couldn't even come to the court. The doctor just said, you can't go to the court, it's too traumatic for you. She was like an old lady, just bent over double and shivering like this all the time. She couldn't help herself. I had to take her to the loo to help her walk. She was completely traumatized. And so that was Friday night. The Saturday morning we went back to the farm. And our children came from Rari to come and help us because we were both very, very weak. The Saturday afternoon, I heard a hooter, a car hooter at my gate. And so I walked out there, still quite weak, but I went there and I saw there were 5 or 6 black men in nice, neat overalls. And I asked if I could help them. They said, we've come to subdivide this farm. We want to know where the beacons are so we can start our work. So I said, who gave you permission to subdivide my farm? They gave me the name of somebody who was a political guy. I said, no, I don't give permission. I've been given this farm back and I don't give permission. You must go. And so they turned around and they left. But I started to realize something's going on here. Here's some deception. And a word started coming back to me when God warned me about deception, when I prayed for that land commissioner. But still, we didn't know the whole story. Well, the Sunday evening, now remember the Monday morning, 8 o'clock sharp, I have to be back in court for the rest of the verdict. The Monday night, in the night, a black man and his wife, whom we know well, very dear people, they came to visit us. And the wife sat with Mandy, just prayed with her and just her arm around and just counseled her. The man took me aside and he said, I just want to tell you that this case has got nothing to do with that animal. They want your farm and they're going to put you in prison. You must get out of the country right now. You must escape tonight. And you know, when he said that, a peace came over me and I just knew that's what I must do. We've got to leave straight away. We've got to escape out of Zimbabwe.
So when we got the message, the warning that we needed to get out the country, I was actually in such a state that I couldn't even comprehend that. My daughters had to pack a suitcase for me. I was in no state to even think, what should I pack? My daughter had to do that. I was too weak to walk. I needed assistance just to walk down the passage. And I remember my youngest daughter saying to me, Mama, don't look at the walls because they're empty. Just keep walking, because all the photographs had been removed. And as we walked through the house and got to the car, she said to me, Mama, you need to turn back and look, because this is probably the last time I've ever seen your home. I said, I can't. I just have to remember it as it was.
So I told my children, I asked them to please pack for us. Now, how do you pack a farm up in a few hours? It's impossible. They packed a suitcase of clothes each for my wife and I, and then my guitar and our documents. I often say to people when I tell the story, you must have your documents in order, because if your house burns down or anything like that, and your documents are not in order, to get a new passport or a new birth certificate is a very big problem. You make sure that your documents are in order so you can just go and take it and go out. And my documents were in order. So we took our documents, all our family photographs and the tools of my trade, put it in a vehicle. Somehow our children managed to get a aeroplane flight for us for the Tuesday morning, not the Monday morning. But early Monday morning, we got in a car and we went to Harare. I phoned that ex-magistrate friend of mine and asked him to go and represent me in court and just say that I'm not well enough to come to the court on Monday. But I didn't know what was going to happen there, whether they were going to start searching for me. Well, Tuesday morning, very early, the aeroplane, I think, leaves at 7. So you have to be at the airport at 5 o'clock in the morning while it's still quite dark. And our son-in-law took us to the airport. Then he went in with our 2 suitcases, just the 2 suitcases, with our passports. And to say that his parents are outside in wheelchairs, and he wants to just put the suitcases through so that they can go in, get our passports stamped and all that kind of thing. But also looking out to see if there might be any police looking for me, because this is now a border. And so while he was inside there, and we're not knowing what's happening inside, he's now trying to organize things for us. Mandy and I were sitting in the car, and Mandy suddenly said to me, there's a security official that's looking very directly at us. So I just put my hand over my face like this so that he couldn't see who I was. Because now we're not sure if the police are there and looking for me, because I wasn't in the court. And then Mandy said to me, this man is walking towards us. And slowly the man walked towards us, closer and closer and closer, and I just kept my hand over my face so that he couldn't see me. And he walked right past me to the back of the car, a bit further back, and then I saw in the rearview mirror that he was walking back. So again, I kept my hand over my eyes so that he couldn't see me, and he walked right to my window of my door. I promise you this really happened. He walked right to the door of the window of my door and knocked on the window. So now I had to look at him. I looked at him and said, "Can I help you?" He said to me, "Your car lights are on, you forgot the car lights on." That was such a tense moment. But I said, "Thank you very much." And my son-in-law had forgotten to switch the lights off, so I switched the lights off. Well, then my son-in-law arrived. Now, all of this was traumatic for us, especially for Mandy. And so we were put into wheelchairs and wheeled in to the aeroplane. And then just before coming into the aeroplane, they let all the other passengers come past us and put us on the side, obviously because we were in wheelchairs. And so that was traumatic because now we're outside. We want to get onto SAA, South African Airways. We want to get onto the plane as quickly as we can. And now we're sitting outside in wheelchairs while everybody went past. And then when they were all past, they wheeled us in, and they then tried to get Mandy up from the wheelchair to put her in the seat, and she collapsed. And I said to the air hostess, "Sorry, but my wife is really very, very weak. Let me do it." And I helped her, just held her, slowly carrying her and put her into her seat. And I sat next to her. And when the doors were closed and the aeroplane was taxiing off, we were feeling quite desperate to get that this aeroplane had to now take off and get out of Zimbabwe. And so as the aeroplane taxied out and started to take off and Zimbabwe fell away from us, I took Mandy's hand next to me and I looked at her and I said, "My darling, we've got each other."